Today we have a debate. We have the question, the issue is going to be it resolved that the media and the judiciary do not adequately support the fight against corruption and poor governance in the country. So the positive, the proposal is that they do not adequately support the fight against corruption. So that's the positive, that they do not support it. And the negative would be that they do not support it, so they support. We have 4 eminent persons to lead us in this debate, and I will introduce them to you. For the motion, for the proposal, Hazel Brown, coordinator of Network of NGOs of Trinidad and Tobago for the Advancement of Women. Hazel Brown has been professionally involved in research, social development, and community organization projects for more than 40 years. I think it's more than that, but Hazel wants to hide her age. She has been particularly active in the areas of poverty eradication, consumer affairs, and in promoting gender equity. To this end, she has organized and conducted numerous seminars and workshops in collaboration with government ministries, CARICOM, Commonwealth organizations, and UN agencies. Ms. Brown is an outstanding Caribbean woman leader and has visited and worked with women's organizations and leaders in all Commonwealth Caribbean countries on matters related to consumer affairs, politics, development, and gender equity issues. She was also a founding member of the Network of NGOs of Trinidad and Tobago for the Advancement of Women, formed in 1985 to present the position of women in Trinidad and Tobago at the end of decade conference in Nairobi. As a past Secretary General of the Commonwealth Women's Network, she has been engaged in Commonwealth activities since the first Commonwealth People's Forum at Shogam in Harare in 1991. Ms. Brown's outstanding record of community service is evidenced by her numerous awards and commendations. And Ms. Brown will lead off the debate in the person supporting the motion or the resolution. And joining her will be Sterling Belgrove, who is the Executive Chairman of the Rose Foundation and the Caribbean Emergence Institute, and also Dean of the Ambassador for Peace Corps of Trinidad and Tobago. He has distinguished his career in business development, strategic management, industrial and international relations, and is sourced internationally as both a subject matter and field expert in the areas of business and social development. He has served as a specialist consultant to the World Bank and other multilateral agencies. He's a life member of the International Association of Business Leaders and holds an MBA with concentration in leadership, entrepreneurship, and innovation from Anglia Ruskin University, United Kingdom, and currently lectures for a number of universities, including the MBA program at his alma mater. With over 20 years of tactical and strategic involvement in social programs, Mr. Belgrove is a strong propagator of the selfless economy. And the persons who would oppose the proposal: Christopher Hamel-Smith, Partner Emeritus, Dispute and Risk Management, Hamel-Smith and Company. Having practiced as a lawyer since 1982, Mr. Hamel-Smith was appointed Senior Counsel in 2003. Mr. Hamel-Smith's legal practice is focused on strategically managing significant commercial disputes. He also acts in many important constitutional and public law matters. Mr. Hamel-Smith regularly appears as an advocate before the courts of Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and other Caribbean jurisdictions. He occasionally accepts appointments to act as an arbitrator or mediator. Now partner emeritus at Hamel-Smith and Company, he is also developing with David Hamel-Smith a virtual boutique practice to deliver quality litigation and dispute resolution services throughout the East English-speaking Caribbean. And joining Mr. Hamel-Smith will be Mr. Vernon Ramesar, media practitioner and host of One-on-One and head of current affairs at IETV. Vernon has been working in media for 3 decades. His TNT career started at the National Broadcasting Service in 1991 and has since worked for ICN, the merger of TTTI and NBS, Trinidad Broadcasting Company, and CL Communications. He is currently the head of the current affairs and chief interviewer at TV Channel 1, at IETV Channel 1. Vernon has also been a freelance contributor to Photos Travel Guides, Random House, New York, for over a decade. So we have 4 top persons to lead us in this debate. Before we start the debate, well, let me say we have each person will speak for 7 minutes, and at any time after the first minute of the talk, and before the final minute, the other party, the other team, can ask questions of information. And when they do that, a buzzer, you will hear a buzzer, and at the end of the 7 minutes, you'll hear and that will be the end of their contribution.
I often describe myself as a failed politician. So this business about corruption and good governance, as so far as politicians and politics is concerned, is not something that I know very much about. But I do agree that the media and judiciary do not support the struggle, I prefer to call it, especially of poor, ordinary people in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm going to keep my argument to the level of the people. I believe that corruption and good governance, like violence, is learned behavior. People were not born violent or corrupt. They learn it as children. We learn that violence, it is okay to beat children because that is a measure of our love for them. We beat women because that's how we keep them under control. So we need to ask ourselves, where is this behavior learned? And what are we going to do about it? Where does it start? Don't we all have a responsibility to create a fair and just society? Because according to the definitions that we've heard of corruption and good governance here today, they speak to something called action in the public interest. Well, who's the public? Who decides what is the public interest? I'm also very concerned about the corruption and good governance at the level of our professional organizations and professionals in Trinidad and Tobago, because I think they too do not support the fight against corruption, except when you get into debates in the parliament and in the media. One of the things that I know, however, is that we did a study in 1990, and one of the things it says is that women are the fairer sex, that women are more likely not to be corrupt and to practice governance which is participatory, accountable, transparent, responsive, and inclusive. So that if we want to change the situation of corruption and good governance in Trinidad and Tobago, we all need to assume not to abuse the situations of power and privilege that we enjoy as professionals, but to ensure that information is shared and that people have the opportunity to participate in good governance. How much time do I have? I just want to give one example of what I mean. I'm a member of an organization called Trinidad and Tobago Group of Professional Associations, and I think there are some member organizations in here. And the bylaws of that association allows the council that is elected to fix our maintenance fees. But those fees are fixed without any consultation with the membership of the organization. And some of us are now about to change the bylaws of that organization so that we, the owners of the property, can determine what the expenditure of that organization is. And that, for me, in lots of other organizations that I work with, the question of who decides, the extent to which the people who we elect feel that they are accountable to the rest of us, is widespread in Trinidad and Tobago. And that is what we need to fix. We can't fix it by terrorizing the media or the judiciary. We have to start with ourselves.
Good afternoon. Yeah, so more years ago than I care to remember, I decided that I should learn something about project management. And there was a well-regarded international presenter came, and there was a workshop 3 days long, carded in the, what was then the Holiday Inn, I think. And so I turn up, and at the start of the entire session, he says, look, there is one single technique in project management that is the most tried and tested. It's the most common. It's always used. It's the one thing that in every project, everywhere in the world, this is the technique. So I'm going to start by demonstrating it to you. And so he gets our attention. And he stands up in front of the room and he goes like this. He says, because when projects go wrong, everybody says, it's somebody else to blame. And he says, if you learn that technique, then as a project manager, you're safe. All right? Now, he says we're going to spend the next 3 days trying to learn a few other things about project management, but make sure you have that one down correctly. And of course, when you reflect on it, it's not just project management, it's life. Isn't it comfortable to point fingers? We like doing it. Pause for a minute and ask yourself, what do you like better than pointing fingers at other people? It wasn't me. It makes you feel good, doesn't it? And that's my problem with the resolution this afternoon. Be it resolved that the media and the judiciary do not adequately support the fight against corruption and for good governance in the country. It's easy, isn't it comfortable to sit here and point fingers at them? But what is the role and responsibility of the media, and what is the role and responsibility of judiciary? It's not to fight corruption, and it's not to fight poor governance. The role of the media is to report the facts, and by doing that, to shine a light into dark places. And that's an important part of the fight. But that's their role, and that's this test we must apply. And what is the role of the judiciary? It is not to fight corruption or to fight poor governance. It is to fairlessly and independently decide cases and issues that are brought before them. And by that means, to preserve the rule of law, which is crucial as we've understood. So they have an important part to play, but it is not the job of the judiciary to fight corruption. And so in judging them, we must do it against what their job is. Now, reflect for a moment again. Try to think of the single most grievous, dangerous, nasty attack that we've had in my lifetime in this country in terms of corruption and poor governance. What is it? Think, just for a moment, each of us stop. What in your own mind's eye is that incident? Clico? Well, I tell you what mine is. Mine is Section 34. Okay? I tell my friends, I tell my colleagues, I said Abu Bakr invaded the parliament of this country in 1990, but he didn't invade it as grievously and as dangerously as the way it was invaded when the parliamentarians themselves, sorry, Dr. Rowley, when the parliamentarians themselves, government, opposition, and independents, apparently found a way to unanimously pass Section 34. And which then the executive found a way to carve out a piece of the legislation which happened to conveniently include Section 34 and bring it into force in advance of everything else. And in which the minister who presented the bill used the expression blood crimes to explain the list of crimes that were going to be excluded from the protection of Section 34 because they were too serious to get the benefit of the exclusion, and included things like assault. But the whole parliament and the executive, when it brought it into force, didn't stop to think that who are the real criminals? Who are the most dangerous criminals? Is it the shooter? Is it the assaulter? Or is it the big managers of crime, the white collar? And yet not a single non-blood crime was serious enough to be included in the exemptions. That is an act of corruption. Now reflect for a moment. What did the media do about it? The media blew the whistle. It was the media who brought it to the attention of the country what was happening. They did their job. They shone a light. What did the judiciary do when the politicians were forced into then trying to retrospectively reverse what they had done in the dark of the night by the media? The judiciary has so far upheld the validity of that legislation with some difficulty, but with not the assistance. What did we as a society do about it? Precious little. In any serious society, there would have been a major investigation into the crime that occurred in the form of Section 34. The computers in every relevant department would have been immediately isolated. They would have been mirrored, and a proper forensic investigation would have been done to see where were these various versions coming from. But we didn't do it. So I say, it's not the judiciary and the media that have let us down as a society in the fight against corruption and poor governance. We have let them and ourselves down, and I beg you not to point fingers at others, but to take responsibility for ourselves and to reject this motion.
I must commend my colleague in his presentations, for he indeed did place a very compelling case and argument as to why we should reject the motion. He, however, raised a question for consideration, and that is based on the premise about the roles and responsibility of the media and also the judiciary. If the judiciary is symbolized by the scale to hold a balance of justice, then it means they hold a very sacred responsibility to govern the relationships and to preside over the balance of the relationships between the civil society and the various institutions that have been established to look after our democratic rights and freedoms. So in my mind, the question therefore is, what really is the role of the judiciary in the circumstances? I want to draw a point It is said that the patrimony of the country belongs to the people. And speaking from a civil society perspective, civil society is a composite of all the citizens of the nation. And in Trinidad and Tobago, in a 1.3 million population, we have currently on the books 8,000 registered civil society organizations. Civil society organizations emerge when there's a failure between the state and the market to provide for the satisfiers of human needs. When the citizens themselves are not satisfied, that those who are supposed to manage our affairs have really stood up to the task and the responsibility. And since there's so many gaps and the confidence is shaken, then the people form themselves into associations to address these gaps, and therefore it's an indictment to some extent on the confidence threshold of the people in their leaders, in the systems that are supposed to protect their interests, protect their democracy, and protect their freedom. I remember in a conversation recently with a representative from the World Bank. We were discussing that how the managers, as we rightly call, has been managing the resources of the people for the good and welfare of the people. And he said, so what do you think about the fact that it is said that the patrimony of Trinidad and Tobago belongs to the people of Trinidad and Tobago? I said, well, that's a given fact. He said, if so, show me, therefore, in your laws, in your legislations, in your system, where it is enshrined and where it is embedded. He said, show me, how does the judiciary ensure that in terms of doing their job, ensure that the people's right, more particularly from a social justice point of view, is protected? How does the citizen bring a social justice issue before the system? Is the judiciary empowered to hear and to adjudicate on social justice issues? Where do you go and what do you do? And it's from that point of view we have some challenges with understanding and with supporting that the judiciary in fact has been contributing adequately and appropriately to ensuring that corruption does not grow in the context of Trinidad and Tobago. We are saying that if there is not a system that allows the people to go before those who have been appointed to maintain balance in terms of justice, then there is a contribution that is made that really propagates and encourages the environment that is developing. In terms of the media, I just want to submit that the media, as we see it, needs to provide more of a voice and an opportunity for the voiceless, to see what the people are saying, to hear what the people are hearing, to say what the people want said and they cannot say, and to also ensure that those who hold office do what the people want done. Yes, I agree to shed some light in the darkness, but how bright is the bulb? How much do they illuminate the darkness that the people experience on a day-to-day basis? And it's on this basis we are saying that more needs to be done, both by the judiciary and by the media. And I thank you.
I think bad governance and corruption makes us all angry. And when does it make us angry? When we find out about it in the media. And I think for Trinidad and Tobago, for a small country with the great limitations that the media has, we've done a remarkably good job of exposing bad governance and corruption. Could we do better? Possibly. But again, as I said, there are tremendous limitations. Our job, our primary role is to inform the public about things that we see. It's also, if we have the resources, about informing the public of the things that aren't seen, corruption, things below the surface. But there are challenges with that. We, of course, have some examples that we've done a good job in that area. The Piarco Airport scandal comes to mind, as does the previous Udicot scandal. So in that regard, I think we really can't be faulted too much. At the other end of the scale, when it comes to justice, well, their job is primarily to determine wrongdoing or innocence. And when it comes to that, that's basically all that they can do. They aren't about gathering information, that's what we do. So in that context, I think we should be very grateful that we have a media in Trinidad and Tobago that is vibrant, diverse, and willing to address and tackle issues that I think the public needs to know about. Very simple, and I hope you will vote down this motion.
So we're going to have our 10 minutes comments from the floor, the audience.
Coming out of the discussion and presentation, the point was made about the role of the media not to fight corruption, and very clearly that sort of role was put on we, the civil society groups. I want to refer to one case of that. The infamous SNV Lavalin from Canada, a model of corruption by diplomat, government, including Canada, who seems to think that she is the most beautiful and perfect country in the world. It was a reporter from the Trinidad Guardian by the name of Radhika Sukraj who literally bust the mark. And coming out of that, my chamber decided to have a discussion on SNC Lavalin and the infamous award for the penal hospital. Arising out of that, the JCC, Mr. Afro Raymond, I don't know if he's here, he was here this morning, called and we got together, he attended our meeting, and out of that, this civil society non-governmental organization was formed when we held a breakfast meeting, Transparency Institute, TTMA, Phaeton, AmCham, to name a few, joined us, and we formed this group and had this continuous lobby for the procurement legislation, and we are still fighting today. It is to our credit that we were able to get incorporated in the procurement legislation the question of government-to-government projects. Massive projects that we citizens of this country have to pay back loans, albeit at low interest rate. But it is a loan, it is not a grant. If you love me and you want to come and build a hospital for me in Pinal, bring your people, go ahead. But once me and my grandchildren have to pay back for the loan, we reserve the right to have local content and national development through this. And this is an example of the media and civil society groups coming together and working in the interest and to the benefit of the nation. Thank you.
The question maybe is not whether or not media and judiciary do. The question, the proposition I thought was, do they do enough? And we expect, and the fact that we expect more from them than they do. And I think the example that was just given by Mr. Sergio Singh about how together we can improve the level of governance in the country is really the direction that we all should be going in.
It's a key contribution, and it, but what I think it does bring out is the idea that the media and civil society groups working together. But the point is, it shows that the media did their job. They were the one that bust the mark, and 92% of youths in Trinidad recognize corruption as a problem. We heard that earlier. That's because the media largely has contributed to that. The judiciary is independent. It is robust. We are very fortunate as a society. They are largely pulling their weight, the media and the judiciary. Are we, as regularly as civil society, doing what was done as reflected in the contribution from the floor? Are we taking the ball? Are we doing what we need to do at the investigative level, the police level, the integrity commission level, the other institution levels, to bring together the information that is required to present it to the judiciary to be able to do what they need to do with corruption? That's where the breakdown is. It's not at the judiciary, it's not at the media. It is both downstream with the civil society, with us, and it is also, if you like, upstream in terms of the failure to give our police, our investigators, our institutions that have to prepare the cases for the judiciary, the kind of clout to be able to put the material together and bring it to the courts. That's where the real problem is, and therefore supporting this proposition is a distraction from the real issues we have to face.
Well, we have heard the two teams, and it's now for you to have the final vote. But let me say that when we vote this time, I hope that whoever is victorious in the vote will have more than 50% of the people here, because we don't have time for a runoff. So let us, by the show of hands again, who are in favor of the motion? And who are against? Thank you very much. So I want to thank the participants for bringing us such a wonderful debate. And I get the impression, I feel, that a debate has now started.